You have been one, I think, of our most frequent guests. I don't have a tally, but we'll say you've been on 37 times.
Hey, I have.
I mean, who is going to refute that? So we'll say you've been on many times.
Yes, I have.
And talking about so many special events and programs and initiatives at the Discovery Center. So it is really good to have you back on the program.
It's good to be back, and it's going to be sort of sad to miss that kind of thing. But maybe I'll do something else, and I'll be newsworthy.
You will always be welcome here.
All right.
Let's talk a little bit about Pokey Crocker. I mean, your life, and talk about the early days, and then in a moment we'll talk about the recent years at the Discovery Center. But give us a little background.
Well, I am a Binghamton native, born here, and I lived on the corner of Riverside Drive and West End Avenue in a house that my father and mother bought in 1926 and redid. And now it belongs to the Betsy Petrick, and she's trying to sell it. But it was a wonderful, wonderful house. And across the street were fields and no houses.
There were no houses across near the river?
No.
On the south side of the Riverside Drive? I had no idea.
And we went tobogganing, and we went skiing, and we went running, and we went skating, and we did all kinds of things over there. And it was wonderful. Really was. And we had one shack, and that was on the street side to go to school. And Here Comes the BUS. We would all sing in unison. But that was it. And then all of a sudden they sold some of the land. And so that Riverside Drive became a place to live, and the other side of the street too. But we were all surrounded by fields and fences at that time. But I had a wonderful childhood. My parents were off the wall. They were fun, and they were great, and I went with them when they played golf, and just had a good time. And then I grew up, and I went to Alexander Hamilton, the school upon the hill. And that was great because I was...
The school on the hill. I'm trying... I don't know...
St. John Avenue, and it was a hill.
On the south side?
No, on the Binghamton side.
Oh, that's right. On the west. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of something else on the south side. But St. John Avenue, yes.
And now it's a home, and it's great. It's one of the fun ones. But I stayed there right through the 6th grade, and that was fun. I had that. I spent a lot of time in the principal's office too.
Were you a troublemaker?
Yes, a little bit of a troublemaker.
Elaborate. Statute of limitations has expired, so provide some.
I just did raucous things. I laughed and roared and made fun of people, and I was not very nice because I like to be funny, and I wasn't really
in the classroom?
Funny.
I mean, did you raise heck in the classroom?
Yeah, I did.
Were you like sort of a class clown or an entertainer?
Yeah.
Entertainer?
And then Mrs. Nichols, especially Mrs. Nichols in the 6th grade, would say, Margaret, no, it's time for you to go to the principal's office. So I'd go down and I'd sit with Mr. Cosgrove and laugh and talk, and then he'd send me back. So that was my...
It was no real punishment.
No, it was no punishment
It was
at
kind
all.
of a break, having coffee with the principal, and okay, you can go back to class now.
And he always remembered me, and before he died, he even wrote me a letter. And that was great. And then I went from Alexander Hamilton to West Junior. And I was a little bit more serious there. I loved my teachers. I took Latin. I took, all kinds of great classes and had fun and graduated about 4th in my class, which was good. And then I went on to Binghamton High School. And Binghamton High School was a trip. It was great. It was good.
Tell me about Binghamton High. You're talking about Central.
Yeah, Binghamton Central High School.
Yes, on Main Street. And that's back when the city also had the high school over on the east side, East Junior now.
Central was great. I had a wonderful time at Binghamton High School. I had a marvelous time. Everybody did. We didn't see all these things. We didn't have frightening, we weren't frightened about where we were or how we were. We walked back.
What about drugs? Were a lot of drugs and drinking?
I don't know. I don't know.
To your knowledge, you didn't see that?
I didn't see that at all. And we were just going to school, and I loved it. And I walked home, and I walked to school, and I never had any problems. We had a couple of Great Danes in my house, so they would walk me halfway to school. But I never had any trouble at all there. I had great friends. I had wonderful friends. And I was sorry to see what happened, but I think it's going to be better. But then I went off to college. Yay! Pokey goes to school. Lake Erie College for Women. My father called it St. Mag's for the Hags, so we all went there. I was the only person that went west. The rest of them all went to, Mount Holyoke and all those good places. But I went to Lake Erie College for Women. I had a great time.
Well, and what when you went to school, when you went to college, what was your intention? Did you have a plan? What were you studying?
They had a good English department, and I was writing, and also I wanted theater, and so I had a minor in theater. And that was great, too. And I was in plays, and I liked that very much. And then I met an awfully nice young man on my sophomore year, and I decided to marry him. So we ran away and got married, and so he was...
You say you ran away and got married. Did you do this without the express written consent of Major League Baseball? I mean, were your parents on board?
No, not yet.
Really?
We went home and told them.
How did that go over?
Oh, yeah, like a lead balloon. But anyway, they loved him, and I did too. And so he was killed just before he was to graduate from Kenyon College, which was a wonderful school. We moved to Kenyon. We had a great apartment, and we had lots of friends there. And so he moved to Kenyon, and I moved to Kenyon, and he was studying with a professor in his house, his mother's house, and he had turned on the heat in the morning, and there was no heat. It was carbon monoxide. So he died with the professor. The rest of the students sort of eached out. Every one of them went their own way in the daytime. Some of them wound up in the hospital. A couple of them wound up in the clinics. But he was the one that died. He and Ted Bogartis, his name. And he was a protege of John Crow Ransom, the wonderful professor that was at Kenyon. So I packed it up and came home and had a baby by then. And so Danielle was born on his birthday, believe it or not. She wasn't due until August. So she was born on Dan's birthday. I called her Danielle Gano Ray, and she is in Colorado.
So you had to endure. You faced a real serious tragedy at a young age.
Yeah, I did. And I already had one baby. The first year we were married. The second year and then got pregnant right away. But I had Muffin, and Muffin has got her show at Orazio Salati's right now for June and July, or May and June. And it's great. It's a wonderful, wonderful show. It's very different than anything you've ever seen, but it's great. So then I came back to Binghamton. Mother said, well, you've got to do something, my dear. You have to join the junior league. Oh, Lord, I thought. Okay, so I did, but I had a good time in the junior league. I did what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be the president. I didn't want to do anything else, but I did do a lot of plays, and we did the puppet shows. So we did the last one, Omar and the Olives, which was a sort of a chic and, well, anyway, it was a play when the Jewish people had a major problem with the Arabs at that time, and it happened when I was doing a play, and they came rushing out on the stage and said, take this down right away and get out of here. So I did.
Oh, really?
We did. What for? Because there's a war on. So anyway, but I met David Crocker, and I adored him too. I met him skiing. We went skiing and dinner, and finally he asked me to marry him, and I said, sure, why not? And I've been married to him for 57 years.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much I just learned from, I mean, you've been with us so many times, and it just goes to show you don't really know the life experience of most people till you ask. Our guest in the studio is Margaret Crocker, Executive Director of the Discovery Center of the Southern Tier.
Right. So
the question, of course, presents, how and when did people start referring to you as Pokey Crocker?
The day I was born. My grandfather was a doctor. He was a chief of staff at General Hospital. And he came running down when he heard about this baby and saw it. And his cohorts came too. And one Dr. Sullivan said, well, Pokey is here. And the nurses thought that was great, so they put it on the box, and there it is. I've always been Pokey. Really, Margaret, as signing checks and things like that. But I've always been Pokey. Not really Pokey, but Pokey.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there. It's because here I figured it had something to do with claymation and the kid who came up with Gumby and Pokey and that there probably somewhere along the way that you wound up licensing the name Pokey to the guy who came up with Gumby and Pokey, and secretly you've been receiving royalty checks, to the tune of millions of dollars a year.
No, that was really my name for a long time. I mean, I'm forever, and it'll probably be that way forever. But I did try to get my email name, Mayor Pokey, finally, but Pokey was the first one, and they wouldn't give it to me because of Gumby and Pokey.
Really?
Yeah, but that's all right. I got Mayor Pokey, and that was better.
I like.
Yeah.
This is it's a bittersweet segment for me, and again, because you've been a regular guest on the program. We've had a lot of fun here. We've had a lot of fun. You sometimes bring in cohorts and sometimes have dressed up, even though it's radio, but it just goes to show just how much fun that you have had as the executive director of the Discovery Center of the Southern Tier. And let's now move into that chapter of your life. For people not familiar with how the Discovery Center got up or got started, and we've talked about this on previous programs, but keeping in mind that not everybody heard the history of the Discovery Center, for people who don't know, it started off small.
It did indeed, and it started off in the Columbus School, which is now one of the it was one of the offices for the school district, and probably the one that is separated, which is good. But we were there, and I was in the junior league at the time and working at Robertson. I worked at Robertson for 22 years, and when that happened, they gave me the job of doing a feasibility study in certain neighborhoods. Would you support this school idea, this wonderful museum idea? I said, sure. So I did that for 2 years, and then I went to Owego to be the Arts Council director of the Tioga County Council on the Arts. That was my first directorship, and I loved it. I had a ball. I did lots of things there that I never had done before, and it got me ready to take on this job of director of the Discovery Center. So I did. In 1988, I came there, and I talked to them and thought about it, and then I said, I love my job in Owego. It's just great. Yes, but where are your loyalties? You're a Binghamtonian. I thought, well, okay. So I looked it all over, and in 1980, let's say 89, in June, I took the Discovery Center, and I just went wild with it. I really did. I had more fun to just redesign it, which was the first thing I had to do, was to put that road in around and all the different things. I got a man from Provincetown, who was a artist and a designer, and he was off the wall. And he came, and I had a girl who was a painter, and she ran away with him after the thing was over. And let's see, what else? I guess we had a wonderful team of I guess you'd call them special kinds of carpenters, because they loved kids, and they had kids, and they were able to see what children liked. So we opened it on the 1st of April in 1989 with 700 people. Fresh flowers, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, the Ackles smiling all over the place because their museum piece was the first gift that I got. And then it started from there. I think the most exciting part, of course, other than my staff, I've had a lot of staff, but not really. But they've all been very good, and they have not been micromanaged, which I'm very proud of. One person had to be micromanaged, but she went away, and then she came back and thanked me. And she's now a president of a school board or something, or she's in a school. But everybody else has been wonderful. And I think that the most exciting thing was raising the $1,002 million and doing that addition. And that was in 1901 and 1902. And by God, the day we were supposed to do it was the day that we got down in New York. Bad day.
9/11.
9/11. So we had to change that day for another day and make it in October instead. And so we went ahead and the carpenters wrote on everything, "This way, kids, for fun," and all kinds of wonderful things. And it worked out. We had a lot
It's interesting to think about what kids must have been thinking in the aftermath of 9/11. I mean, we all, as adults, we all can remember where we were. I remember being here at the radio station and then being on the station almost continuously from, say, shortly after 9 o'clock in the morning to probably almost 5:30 in the afternoon with the ongoing coverage. So everybody remembers what was happening that day as an adult. But for me, thinking about it now, just imagine how traumatic this was for young children who were seeing these horrific images on TV or maybe even on the fledgling internet at the time, and seeing that their parents and grandparents and teachers and everybody, all the adults in their lives, were so upset by something that none of us could have imagined before.
All right. And then the children in New York. That was the worst. I mean, they didn't see their fathers, their mothers, their sisters, their brothers, their cousins. They were gone. They were pulverized in this whole nightmare. And it's just awful. I know.
Well, and it strikes me that an organization, a place like the Discovery Center, at that point had to be very important to help bring a certain level of normal to young people, and to give them a place to explore. And yes, you wind up learning about the real world in all sorts of different ways, including, unfortunately, exposure to tragedies on the news. But there are also good and exciting things for young people to learn. And they've been able to do that at the Discovery Center.
Yeah, and they did, and they have, and it's just grown since then. I saw the... It's a playground, and it's the Be Nice playground. It's play nice and be friendly, and it's wonderful. And it was built by 135 students from BU who were doing a project, but they were wonderful, and they had their dinner at our place, and I made friends with all of them, and we just had a great time. So that was one thing. The next thing was I approved the Story Garden. I haven't had a lot to do with that because I've been in the inside, but that was a wonderful thing to do, and I just said, go ahead, do this, and they all came to me and asked me, and I said, fine. And so that was another thing, and then the solar house at the top of the hill, and then I just put another building on, another room for children from the Handicapped Association for their PT every day. And then in the weekends they put the stuff away, and then they become, it's a birthday room. So that was the last and the only piece of anything I could put on because it's pretty well crowded now. So I have another surprise for the staff, and I can't tell, but that's going to be done. But after I go, but Martha Steed will be taking care of it. So that's where we are, and I just love it. And the exhibits are good. We do a lot of things with the co-sponsor with SUNY and BAE or NYSEG or Lockheed Martin. And that's a good thing, too. So everything is kind of moving along.
We're speaking with Pokey Crocker, Executive Director of the Discovery Center of the Southern Tier, who will be retiring in a few days. What's next for you?
Oh, lots of things. First of all, I'm going to see my husband for the first time in 55 years. I've only seen him about a half an hour. I leave him a bird bath lunch in the bird bath when he goes off on his tractor, but I haven't seen him at all. I mean, I really haven't. We come for dinner and say hello and and everything, but I've been really busy at the Discovery Center. But he has never ever told me that was wrong. He has been there for me every single minute of my life. Put food under the table under the door when my thesis was lost on the computer, and I had about a week to do it. And he's been wonderful. My daughters have been super. They're going to be seeing me now. I'm going to be taking Lyceum classes. I'm going to do painting. I'm going to do writing. I'm going to go travel. I'm going to go to Canada. I'm going to go to Colorado up pretty soon. On the 4th of June, I'm going to Colorado for a month. See the girls, Danny and Muffin. So I have lots of things to do.
So you'll stay busy.
I'm still on 3 boards. Can't get rid of those.
And you're going to stick around in the Southern Tier?
Yeah, sure. I'm not going to leave here. I like it here. I love it here. Why go now? I'm 80 years old. The minute I leave, I'll probably die. So
Well, you've earned your retirement. A listener writes that I've heard many interviews in the past with Pokey Crocker, but today's was certainly the best. It was great to hear her personal life story and the many difficulties she faced and overcame. She certainly could teach many people in today's society not to feel sorry for themselves and obstacles they face, but keep marching forward. I hope she enjoys her retirement.
I will. I think the hardest thing that happened was when we lost our son. And he was 50. He had 2 darling children and a beautiful wife, and he fell skiing. And he had a disease that he never knew about. It was a necrosis of the aorta. And you don't find that ever, unless you've got a heart condition. And he died right there, that day. 3 years ago in March. So on St. Patrick's Day, he wasn't even Irish. So,
but even with tragedies in early life and throughout life, as all of us endure, you persevered.
Yep.
And you've had a great life.
You have to. You can't lie around and feel sorry for yourself all the time. You got other things to do. And for those people who you lost, you do it for them.
Pokey Crocker, the Discovery Center of the Southern Tier Executive Director for so many years. I wish you the best, and I wish the best to your family in the coming years.
Thank you so much. I've loved every minute of this. It's been wonderful.
And thanks for being with us on
And
Binghamton
I'm
Now.
very happy to have been here. Thank you.